There's a great website that gives you all this information about HTML and CSS that pretty much pops up anytime you Google something about HTML or CSS. So if we Google, for instance, the CSS box model, which is what we're going to talk about next, and I'm going to challenge you to stylize your own div tag with the box model, you're going to see that the second you look up CSS box model, most likely the website W3 Schools is going to pop up. It's a great website, has lots of information for you to be able to learn how to code, and they do a great job of explaining a lot of different things. In here, the CSS box model, I highly suggest you come to this website because you're going to need it for your next challenge. It explains that an HTML element can be considered as boxes. And the CSS, the term box model, is used when we're talking about how that box exists. The box model essentially talks about how you have content in the middle of a box, and then how does that box elements of padding, border, and margin exist around it. So in our previous page, what we did was we created a box with text inside of it, right? That's the content. So when I talk about content, I'm talking about the fact that this is the content. It can be images, it can be text, it can be all these different things, but you have content inside of it. We then added what we put here as a border, right? So we put a 2-pixel solid border. When we did that, you can see that there's a border on the outside of both of these boxes. That is this green area right here on this box. But what this box model is showing you is that there's actually padding in the middle between the content and the border. So this is where you can push the content away from the border of the box. I like to think of this as like when you're trying to, pack a package. You're going to put something very fragile in the middle of a box and you're going to send it to a friend, right? Well, you wouldn't just throw the stuff, the contents, the beautiful vase you're going to send, because I know y'all are going to send vases to your best friend. The beautiful vase you're going to send, this fragile vase, you're not just going to throw it in a box and call it good. You're going to put some padding around it. You're going to put some bubble wrap. You're probably going to use, maybe some broken up paper, newspaper, whatever it is, you're going to put padding in it. That's what padding is inside this box, have the box being the border. So if I go here and I apply padding of, let's say, 10 pixels to this box, you're going to see that now I've got space between the content, the text, and the border on both the top and the bottom. And actually, it applied to the bottom, both the top and the left, and it actually applied to the bottom and the right as well. Then what you have is margin, which sits outside the box. So this would be like if you were hoping that the trucking company was going to put your box in the center of the back of the truck and nothing around it, so that way it isn't going to get crushed by other things. Now, obviously, usually when we pack stuff, we probably wouldn't want to put it in the middle and let it slide around and do all these things, but you can choose whether or not you want that. So in here, if I apply a margin to this box of 10 pixels, you're going to, if I could type 10 pixels, you're going to see that there's now space on the left of it. But I think what's best to show it is there's now space between the boxes together because they have this margin on the outside of the border. So you have these pieces of the CSS box model that explain how a box works. And you're going to need this for your next challenge. I would also say that in here, it also shows you how it should be coded and other things about it, like the fact that a border can have not only a width or a sizing and what type of border it is, but also a color. And these 3 settings can be changed. There's not just solid borders, there's other types of borders. And if you go over here on the left, you can see that CSS borders is an option. So if I went to CSS borders, I could learn more about how borders even are created and how I can have dotted, dash, solid, double, groove, ridge, inset, so many different kinds of borders for border styles. Tons of different things that you can use. You have different ways that you can write borders. So you can do a border width, a border color, a border side, and then a way to write it shorthand. So what I think is important to note real quick before you get on out of here and go try your challenge is I can write it as like a border width being 2 pixels, a border style being solid, and a border color being green. When I do that, you're going to see they all change. But I could also write all 3 together, and that's the shorthand version of borders. So I could just do a border that is 2 pixels, solid, green, specifying width, style, and color in that order. And then I can delete all of those border widths, border styles, and border colors, and just have one shorthand version of border. And the same thing applies. So just something to kind of explain. But what you're going to do in your challenge is you're going to be creating a border, a padding, a margin, and a width and height for a div tag with stuff inside of it. And that's going to be using that CSS box model that we talked about right up here.